Hey guys.
Don't kill children, don't let them know. Let them live their life, let them get older.
So this is pretty much my second attempt at doing this. So it's a real shame because what I have in my hand here is the only surviving, well, one of three surviving comic books that I had from my first and original comic book collection. I think that what's interesting with story, like if you settle the stakes, I think the stakes are really interesting because I have no memory of this comic. As you see, there's no front cover, there's no credits or anything like that, and it's really interesting because I think at the end of this, either a kind of I would have cemented a childhood memory, a fond childhood memory. And it's almost like when you, like things from our childhood, you kind of, you can make an argument that it's kind of childish nostalgia. But I think it enables you to kind of time travel in a weird way. You're able to mentally regress to a much more simpler time where things weren't so big or complicated and life wasn't so fast and moving at you. So yeah, there is an element of arrested development within that. But, it's great. I guess it's why the popularity of Star Wars still persists, and while, it's really hard to get an adult into Star Wars or the classic trilogy unless bitten by the bug, because there is a sense that they are kind of childlike. But I think I really like the Harlan Ellison line about genius being the creation of childhood at will. And there was something about the magic and simplicity of childhood. This is kind of static right now. I realize how boring this probably is, but also I feel that, in laying out the stakes, either that will happen, which is cementing a fond, half-remembered memory and cementing it in your mind as a form of self-indulgent childhood nostalgia, or destroying a piece of childhood nostalgia, like a Pandora's box that you open. But this is fascinating because I have no memory of this. This was in a shoebox. Funny enough, a little backstory. So I'm going to be dating myself here in a little while, but I think during my teenage years, I found my pre-adolescent comic book collection in a shoebox, and half remembered everything, and primal memories that when I seriously started to collect comic books as a late teenager, I was like, oh, I should really start trying to remember the comic books that got me into comic books. And all I remembered, and this was so long ago, Googling this, that there wasn't even a word for it. I just went, fat chick, superpowers. That's all I remembered. That's all I remembered. I remember the comic book with a fat woman with superpowers. So plus size wasn't even a word. And of course, what came up is Harbinger. I had no memory of Harbinger. Funny enough, the issue that I really, really liked and really remembered, which was the only issue of Harbinger, actually isn't in this collection. And I read this, I guess, whenever this came out. Let's open this up, shall we? Because we're kind of burying the lead a little bit here. The copyright says that this came out in cover and compilation copyright 2007. So I imagine that this collected, which was the first 7 issues of Harbinger, when this came out and was collected, was in 2007. So a long time ago. I read this in 2007, and again, really, it didn't impact me and didn't really have that, I couldn't see what the fuss was really about. It was a bit of a chore to read, but I don't think I was particularly ready for it. I don't think I was ready for it back in 2007. So what's really interesting is I want to draw your attention, if I can, to Sequart, yeah, who put here, the first storyline deserves to be uttered in the same breath as the masterpiece of the art form, as the masterpieces of the art form, Watchmen, Mouse, and Dark Knight Returns. Now, I think that that's a little bit of hyperbole there. I don't know. So the interesting thing about Harbinger and Valiant here is I have no idea where Harbinger's sitting is in terms of great comic books. It's really interesting because I have no idea where this story ends, really. So what struck me is, as we go into the first page, the beginning, is, Jim Shooter, I think famously editor at Marvel, I believe. Wasn't he like editor at 16 or something? I know nothing. You can keep me honest in the comments down below. I know nothing. But interesting how connections happen. He was in the Robert Kirkman History of Comic Books. If you guys have seen that, it's really, really good. But I will put a pin in that and sidebar. Let's just get into it, shall we? So as we see here, I like this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. That's 5 panels on page 1. Oh my God, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 panels. I'm not a fan of this kind of thing. This always annoys me whenever I see letters with cursive. I can't read cursive, so it's almost like a bit of a strain there. But like, what strikes you so much about this is it's 1992, so it's the start of what Neil Gaiman would liken to the tulip economy. But I think it's so early on that the image style, like, it's still a holdover from the previous generation, isn't it? It's really classic storytelling. And this is what really makes Harbinger timeless is, I kind of thought in my mind it would be like, I guess, the Doom Patrol issue where Danny the Street is dreaming. And what he's dreaming of is the kind of Rob Liefeld Image Comics, the kind of writing to the page turn, full page splash, double page splash, those kind of things. But there's none of that itis here in Jim Shooter's work, just classic, really strong storytelling. What's great about Harbinger is that it's not really X-Men, I can't believe that no one has greenlit this book for TV movie treatment, because it kind of plays, the pilot kind of writes itself, it's really echoing the X-Men. It's really playing on your knowledge of the X-Men. I just want to talk about this for a second. So I should have given a little bit of background. So essentially, if we go back to page 1 here, the gist of this story, it's a great cover there. Sidebar Dave Lapham as well. So what's interesting is here we have the advertisement. If you're different, you can write to Harbinger and they'll come and see how you're different. If you've got psychic powers or telekinetic or anything. So if we go here, what's great is with Peter is, and what Jim is doing is kind of invoking the X-Men, right? He wants you thinking about the X-Men. And what's really interesting is he's foreshadowing here something that I think is absolutely brilliant with Peter, which is really the popular girl, the hot girl in school, if you will. We established from page 1, actually, with, I can't remember if it's Billy or Joe. I'm sorry, guys, it's Joe. So we established here with Joe that Peter and Joe are kind of the losers, and the hierarchy of the high school is Chris is like the popular girl. But like, again, it's very much like the Breakfast Club. Everybody is a basket case or a criminal or I can't even remember all the different categories of Breakfast Club. But we're all each and every one of these things. So there is very much a Breakfast Club element rolling through here. But this is interesting to foreshadow. We're going to sidebar this and go back a little bit later. So this is the first dun, 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 I think we missed a little bit because, oh my God, the big bad in this case, our Professor X, our Professor X is who? Ah, yeah, there it is, Toyo. Oh my God, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Toyo Harada. So I guess Harbinger fans can keep me honest in the comments down below because I have no idea about this book. So great swerve turn there. And I think we're, how many pages? Wow. I love the fact that I think more pages should be numbered in comic books. I think if you're studying them, it gets a little bit easier to kind of go, oh, okay, but this happens at this point. So I imagine, I mean, again, it's serialized storytelling, so I don't know where we're at in terms of acts per se, but I guess this is a great turning point when Joe dies. And so Joe is in Pete's ear. The irony here, of course, is that Peter's power is corrupting him. And Joe has already kind of tried to turn him from the dark side and is getting through. But Toyo Harada, who really wants to keep Pete in check, feels that Pete doubting his powers and not pushing his limits of his powers come from Joe. As you see there, they knock him down. One of the things I think in the writing, even though I don't think Jim has totally figured out the X-Men thing, because when he's writing the X-Men, they come across as bad guys. You know what I mean? They don't come across as the X-Men. They come across as bad guys here. So we have the Danger Room there, training the Harbinger Foundation. Joe dies and he figures it out, doesn't he? He figures it out. And again, so the X-Men here are very much written as, as bad guys. They're not written as X-Men, but that will get sorted out in my interpretation. And I think one of the reasons is, if you think about it, what reason would they have for taking Pete out other than, Toyo Harada has gone, this is a Harbinger, this is a mutant that's far too powerful. We can't allow him to fall into the hands of the humans. We are 8 Dayers. So we are the 8th Dayers, and we can't allow him to fall into the hands of quote unquote, maybe bad mutants or bad Harbingers, or I don't know what. And so we need to take him out because he's too dangerous. It is for the greater good and a necessary evil, perhaps, possibly. And then we have, turn that up. There we have a double page spread, which is, I think, the first one in this book, the first and only in this book. And I mean, I like that. I like that for the page turn. It's like, I mean, that is absolutely amazing. That's 1992. So, and this is, dude, we're 15 pages into, well, actually 12 pages into the first issue. That is crazy. Imagine that, where you're like, that might have been a cliffhanger during the decompress. Like when comics are decompressed, that'd be a cliffhanger. It's not a cliffhanger here. And it's so good because I don't think you're expecting that at all. You talk about a good use of a money shot. That's a really good use of a money shot there with the double page spread. I really like that. Maybe, you could have, if you're compressing it, you could put that as a full page splash. You still get the same, but I don't know. I like that. Boom. Because I think if you have the explosion on this page and then you have a whole bunch of sequential panels here, I think that diverts the eye and you don't get the full impact. So you really get the when you open up the book, which I really, really like. And so we have, I don't know how we picked up Chris there. Oh yeah, there it is. Boom. So then he drives off. And so that is pretty much issue 1, which invokes the X-Men, right? So you think that Pete's going to be a Harbinger. He's going to be inducted into the Harbinger school for the gifted. Toyo Harada is going to, right? You think the whole Kitty Pryde thing is going to happen, or the Rogue thing, or whatever, and it doesn't. It turns out the good guys are the bad guys. And I tried to think about what it invoked in me and what I was thinking about, like what could be referenced. And I started thinking about maybe the Runaways. Brian K. Vaughan on the Runaways started to come into mind a little bit. Because it is sort of that. And then we have issue 2, Children of the 8th Day. So again, we sidebar Jim Shooter. I was watching The Secret History of Comic Books, produced by Kirkman. It's a great, great television show. If you guys haven't seen it, it's about 6 episodes, and it's really just, I mean, there's a lot of puff celebrity pieces. Again, here's another thing where later on, Jim Shooter seems to write the Harbingers as if they were X-Men, right? As if they weren't bad guys. Because here, this is pretty much grown-up adults murdering children, right? Murdering high schoolers and having a lot of the dialogue. Now, Harbinger comic book fans can keep me honest in the comment down below, because I have no idea what this is like. You know, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's my interpretation. I was just like, It does get better where he seems to figure out, okay, we can write these guys. Anyway, Jim Shooter's in it, and he's, you know, there's lots of interviews with Jim Shooter in that, you know, that he comes across quite well. It tells a heartbreaking story about Stanley and Jack Kirby in their final reunion. And, you know, I won't ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it. Again, we have, and again, we've already sidebarred Pete, but I want to sidebar Pete again. So yeah, we have a bunch of teenagers on the run here. I guess sidebarring Dave Lapham is a good thing. Dave Lapham probably mostly well known now for Stray Bullets, and we'll get into that a little later if we get time. You know, but yeah, mainly known for like noir crime stories with a little bit of maybe more closer to Ed Brubaker than Brian Azzarello in terms of that stuff. Oh, here we go. Oh my God, sorry guys. So the team now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, sometimes the book feels very young adulty. So I don't know. Way back in the halcyon days of '92, of course, we have an advertisement here in the back pages of the newspaper. They find the P.O. box where people, I mean, I guess there's only one P.O. box up and down the country where all the letters are. And then from those letters, they're able to intercept all the would-be people, and then here they come to Faith. Now, what's interesting is I immediately recognized this, right? And I want to say that immediately, this is '92, so I don't know, you know, in terms of people dissecting popular culture at this moment, there's a Richard Gere movie, probably a remake of a French movie, and as we see here, there's Flaming Carrots, there's an Enterprise, I think a Bird of Prey. She's wearing the, what is that, Starfleet insignia. So we're establishing Faith's nerd credentials here. And it doesn't feel like Big Bang Theory at all. Oh, Felgagop. So there, boom. That's a Battlestar reference. So, you know, give it up for Jim Shooter there. I don't know if is that inside baseball, really? Is that inside baseball? I think that's a little inside baseball. I don't think that's like that's not a Big Bang reference. It's not a Big Bang Theory reference that everyone can get. That's a very specific. Felgagop is that Thundercats? I have no idea. I'm going to say it's Battlestar, but it might be Thundercats. Probably not. Anyway, it seems like an inside-y reference. You can keep me honest in the comments down below. Oh yeah, so they pick up Faith. So this is interesting. This wasn't like the issue that I remembered, right? I didn't remember Faith being a nerd, but it kind of made sense to me that, you know, you would connect with a plus size high school teenager because she was nerd and she was an outside figure and she didn't necessarily fit in. So yeah, Dave Lapham does a lot of noir comics, and already we're kind of building the team. And if I missed it, I might have missed it. Hang on, let me go back one, you guys. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so we sidebarred Pete, and I just want to get into this a little bit here because you can keep me honest in the comments down below. One of the great things that Jim Shooter does is he has Pete's superpower, which is so unique. Code as a violation. And if he couldn't make it more obvious, I'm just going to read this bit here, you know. I ran my way into your head and took over. Frack. So it's definitely a Battlestar reference. That happens when I pull out real quick brain rape interrupters. If he couldn't make it more obvious enough. So the tension then is derided with Pete, because Pete is probably a pusher, right? So he's a pusher in both the literal sense and the mental sense. So he's a pusher in the sense that he can push his thoughts into people's minds, get them to do things. He's a pusher in the sense that he can take them over, and he can just push them to do things. And a big part of a pusher as well is the telekinesis. He can literally, so, and this is 92. This is very much 92. So yeah, the tension derided here from Pete is, and then we have another character. Oh, this is moving really fast, you guys. This is issue 2, and we're already 4 members in, right? We're in Chris, who was the popular high school girl that Pete was messing with, pushing thoughts and stuff like that. Faith, and then here we have Flamingo, who, so I guess in a weird way, Flamingo is sort of our rogue. Faith is sort of our kiddie pride. She's the conscience of the group. I guess Pete is, I don't know, Cyclops of the group, and Chris is Jean Grey of the group. But though Chris has no superpowers, but her power is strong leadership. And there's not really a Beth Cooper-itis here. I think the Beth Cooper-itis is avoided because Chris, after a while, becomes one of your favorite because she's so kind of strong and has leadership. And actually, you end up, Pete comes across weird. There's a lot of tension derided from not knowing if, what way he's going to turn, if he's going to do a heel turn, if he's going to remain face. I thought it was brilliant. The tension of really going, oh yeah, his power is a violation. So learning, Pete's journey of learning that, you can't just tap into people's heads, that's not cool. Going back to Faith and what we sidebarred, there's a Richard, oh God, it moves so fast, his talk, Jesus. One of the things that, even though it's classic storytelling and you're not met with a lot of writing to the page turn, full page splash or double page spread, it's just classic, really strong draftsmanship from Dave Lapland. Nothing too sexy, just really strong storytelling. And, Shooter isn't kind of getting his benditis on. There's a real, just enough there. There's word balloons here that work you. So visually, it's not boom, boom, boom. It's not very minimalistic. There's a lot of word balloons here, but Jim has got so much experience and he knows what he's doing that it's strong and it's confident. It's enough that it works you, so it feels like a good read, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming to it's like, I might as well be reading a book, It's just really a great combination of these two really flowing well together with the art and the word balloons. And, it really does bring you in. It's very young adult storytelling, but it does still bring you in. So again, they're just getting these different members of the team together. I should talk about talk, but I just, if we can just pause, I guess, for a second here. A little bit to kind of go back to what we sidebarred. So Faith is, the Richard Gere movie is kind of like a French remake. It's like a remake of a French New Wave movie. I don't know, Jean-Luc Godard or something. And in it, he's doing all these throwaway references. You see him reading Silver Surfer. I don't know if it's Kirby or Mobius's Silver Surfer. I don't know, but I'm going to say Kirby just to be on the safe side. And he's reading out loud from this kind of classic, and it makes sense if it's Kirby, because Kirby got that New Gods kind of stilted, right? That really great, which I guess Morrison in Super Gods talked about it. It got, when it came out, it was kind of laughed out and ridiculed, and everyone goes, oh yeah, Stan was the genius and Kirby was the, but actually Morrison said that it actually really kind of precursored the kind of comic books as literature of the 80s, where everything was kind of grand and operatic and slightly stilted. So once again, the king was before his time, but comic book kids, they'll break your heart. So what's really interesting here is with Faith, sorry guys, with Faith, we'll skip this, you know, because it's just a fight scene anyway, and we'll talk about Talk later on. He'll come up, but with Faith, in terms of popular culture spouting characters, from there you have Richard Linklater's Slacker, where they're talking and discussing Scooby-Doo, the merits of Scooby-Doo, which is 92, I think, or maybe 91. I don't know when Slacker came out. And then with Kevin Smith and Clerks, and discussing Star Wars, which is 92, Reservoir Dogs, with the, you know, You're Under Arrest, Sugar, the talking about the difference between the movie and the TV show, and they couldn't figure out what Pam Grier starred in. Again, dissecting popular culture. So it's there on the horizon, but I'm not sure if it's there so much in comics. But we have a little bit of Faith being, you know, a plus size female high school nerd, which is pretty original and pretty new. But then that brings us full circle to Talk. I love this shot. You probably can't see this too well, but I really like this shot. It feels very Frank Miller-y. Don't ask me why. And this one as well. I like this kind of, you probably can't see that. But it's like this widescreen kind of, I don't know, widescreen kind of shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-panel grid, and boom. This is only issue 2, and it's already moving. You can see, I don't know, I really don't know where this falls in terms of, it's just such strong draftsmanship. That feels like a very Kirby-esque panel as well. I don't know if you can see that, but that feels like a very Kirby-esque panel. It's very good. So it's just bringing the team back together for this. And again, really strong draftsmanship. Now, I kind of might have lost track of how many issues deep we were, actually. Let's go back. Yep, okay. Wow, issue 3. When I read this the first time, I really couldn't, you know, it felt like a lot, because you're so used to kind of streamlined comics at that time. It was very wordy, and it was a lot to deal with, so I couldn't. Anyway, as a great cliffhanger now, we have Making It Real, where now Chris has taken a bullet, and I thought, oh, you know, that's a great one, right? And again, we're still playing with the tension of not knowing where Peter's going to land, because he's entering a lot of people's minds, but we're seeing his journey. We're very much seeing his journey. One of the thing about it is, I don't know how old Shooter is when he's writing this, but I imagine he's quite old by the time 92 is coming around. So the great thing is, you know, yes, you know, the Battlestar stuff might date it a little bit, you know, but because Felga Carp, I don't know what that is, dude. I want to say that's Thundercats, but part of me just going, it's Battlestar. Too old. Yeah, I don't think there's much reference. I mean, there's allusions to movies and references to pop culture, but not too much to date it. You know, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't feel like, oof, you don't wince. I think Talk with his shirt off is a little like, obviously the Wolverine of the bunch. And sometimes there's a little dialogue that's on the nose where they're kind of like, you know, your tough exterior is fooling no one because inside you're just a big soft kitten bunny thing going on, you know. But yeah, I don't think there's much dating it, you know, the perennial universal connections of these young kids dealing with adult issues and growing up, and you know, but I don't know. You can really feel where the book would go, you know, as these kids grow up and they find their own illusions and they grow into themselves, their superpowers. And again, maybe Runaways is a better example of this. You know, how much Runaways has a debt to Harbingers, I don't know. And it's very much building, you know. And again, now they've got the costumes, right? They've got the uniforms and the costumes from the warehouse there. You know, and nothing fancy, nothing splashy, just very strong storytelling from Dave Laphand, which is really nice. And And then douche is pretty much the thing. The introduction to Toyo Harada, again, our Professor X. And this is where the turning point comes. This is where it's like Dave Lapman's like, oh, I probably shouldn't be writing these guys as the bad guys. Let's make it a little bit more ambiguous. Let's make them like X-Men. And I think that was always the point, obviously. But now he's writing them like going, oh, okay, what is the reasonable justification for these adults trying to kill these kids that are harbingers, right? They're too dangerous to live. They'll grow up to destroy the world or something like that. This is an interesting one. You know, what are the consequences of murder? Here we have Torque essentially drowning a guy. I mean, maybe the guy is unconscious, but I'm pretty sure he killed him. But also in the same, I think in the same issue, which is, what is this now? Is end of issue 3? I could have sworn there's one where that's later on, where he starts to show the consequences of violence, and maybe that get paid off a little bit later. So yeah, and this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is issue 4. It's a really pacey read, you guys. It's very, very pacey, unbelievably pacey. And you see here, it's young people. There's a lot of love triangle going on. The ambiguity between Chris and Torque, we never really know what's going on there. This is a great one. At first, I was really excited about this character because Dave kind of draws him quite effeminate, like a androgynist. So I thought it was a female lesbian or a lesbian character that I was really excited for because she was such a douchebag. Turns out he's a guy, so that makes sense. But he's hitting on Faith. And again, you know, this guy is, he can communicate, I guess, with data and machines. And what was this guy's name? That's it, Axe. It was Axe, who is just a douche. So this is where you think, there's an ElfQuest t-shirt there for Faith. This is where you think it might fall apart, right? With the introduction of, with the introduction, I really like that. That reminds me of something from Watchmen that does. I don't know if you can see that there, that kind of ship, whatever, like very Dave Gibbons. Yeah, so they go up into space with aliens, I believe, and that should be where it should kind of fall apart. But it's so pacey, you know, it moves at a really great pace. And again, it's like everyone gets their fair share, you know, and you know, if you have a favorite character, they all get their moment, you know, and this is a great one from Flamingo. Maybe a sort of, I said rogue, but maybe kind of a rogue smashed with Jean Grey, because we have a little bit of our Dark Phoenix. So I think this is issue 5. It could be wrong, but it just moves at a really great pace. There's not an overload. Like I said, the balloons are very confident. That's what I feel like. I don't feel like this is overriding. I think Jim knows exactly how to distill and exactly how many balloons. I mean, looking at it now, you might think it's slightly antiquated because it's, you know, mainstream comics have a real paciness, especially when you look at the 90s, what's coming, right? What's coming is this all goes away and you have something that's more, I don't know what this is more like classic opera. But as Liefeld says in the Secret History documentary, that he wanted to do comic books like, you know, Nirvana's Nevermind, you know, like the guitar riffing on, you know, Here We Are Now, Entertain Us. So here we have Axe, who's been spurned by the group. There was an interesting, I'm sorry, I missed it. We have to go back. I'm sorry, you guys. There's an interesting groinal thing here where as punishment she burns Axe in his genitals, and it's quite funny, you know, that he's essentially, you know, there's a great moment of comic relief here, but he is so mad that he does the opposite of what these guys did, which is he looks up the Harbinger's Foundation's training program and people who are expelled, as it says here. And then he goes and builds himself. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting is Shuda kind of asking questions on the fly. Because one of the things that you'll know as you read this, So I go, where are the parents? Like, how do these high schoolers just go on the run and the parents not ask any questions, not be nosy, not ask or think about anything? So you start asking that question, and yeah, and, you know, Shooter kind of answers that. You know, it's a great moment here for Talk, who you know, it's all very bittersweet. I thought it was really interesting where these characters mature. Sometimes you kind of feel like they don't read like high schoolers. They're a little bit too confident. They're a little bit too possessed sometimes. Maybe that's because of Shooter's age. They don't feel like Beverly Hills 90210. They don't feel like Saved by the Bell. They don't feel like Bill and Ted, you know, like bodacious, heinous, excellent. They don't feel like 90s kids, if that makes sense. They feel like 80s kids, maybe. I don't know. I'm not mad at it. It all works for me. It all works. And here we have this moment. And again, it's very dark sometimes, you know. It's very dark. It gets really dark. But here we go. Some great fight sequences here. And again, nothing flashy, nothing showy, nothing that takes you out of the story. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that takes us to issue 6, which is nice. I don't like this. I mean, immediately I guessed it. I hate this. This thing here, I despise this. And I have no idea why, because the shock of it is absolutely great. I was not expecting this at all. And as soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, wow, they're going to kill off one of the characters, which is great, you know. I don't know if Talk was like Robin, like he was just so annoying. They went, oh yeah, we got to kill this dude off and let's kill the Wolverine of the bunch. I can't remember. You know, Talk has an annoying catchphrase. If you know the catchphrase, you can put it in the comments. It's some have a bud or beer thing that he's trying to make a thing. It's really annoying. Well, at least he's got his shot on now. One of the things is, I guess all these kids are high schoolers. Talk, I think, is 22. So it's a little bit weird. And it's so strange that he's 22. So it's a weird Romeo and Juliet, because essentially he's messing with high schoolers. I don't know how old Flamingo is. My guessing is she's 20 something. But his relationship with Chris is weird. I guess read that as a big brother, little sister relationship, which, but this is great. I love this as well. So this is a great one. I don't know if this is, if this guy is part of Valiant or if he then becomes part of Valiant. But yeah, so we've gone from issue 6. We've got superheroes. We've got, which are a mystery, where they come from, you know, these harbingers, you know, where they get their superpowers from. I guess there's a whole thing of on the 8th day, you know, on the 7th day, God rest, on the 8th day, he made these guys harbingers, you know, harbingers of a thing to come. So they're evidently the whole mutant Homo superior, the next link and jump in the evolutionary chain. I think this is the point where Jim starts to write the guys with superpowers hunting the teenagers as X-Men, and gives them motivation for why they would want to shut down these kids. And so we've already had aliens, but then Jim now is, here we go, sidebar this, but this is the great moment where Faith kind of rams this dude. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's pretty horrific, isn't it? That's horrific and really interesting. It's a nice leap where we see the consequences of violence there. We see the consequences of violence, which is an interesting one. So you can see the book growing. Oh, I forgot what I was saying as well. Probably the X-Men stuff, right? But yeah, you can see the book kind of growing and kind of dealing with those kind of things. That was it. And yeah, that's a great moment. This is dropped in the issue after, right? But I'm pretty sure Jim kind of puts a pin in this, and we'll go back and revisit the trauma of Faith kind of flying backwards and this guy being maimed. Maybe this guy returns as some kind of nemesis for Faith, you know? because now his face is all like jigsawed, like Punisher jigsawed. His face is all mashed up and grinded up, and I don't know. Anyway, we have talk, yeah, beating the hell out of a woman there, you know. So yeah, this is good stuff. And then we have Dr. Solar. So I don't know if Dr. Solar is in the Harbinger's universe or not, but he seems to be Tolpaic. So that's interesting. So even in this world where you have Harbingers, you still have superhero comics. I think in Alan Moore, in Watchmen, where superheroes are real, the stuff that has gone by the wayside. So pirate comics are the thing that is huge, right? In a world where superheroes are real, superhero comics don't really exist. Only pirate comics exist in a weird way. And what's great is the voice is really great. When Jim starts writing Dr. Solar, he makes the teenagers sound very much like teenagers, because suddenly here's what a grown-up and responsible adult sounds like, you know? And it's really nice because suddenly you're reminded that these kids are kids. Still, I guess the overreaching thing here would be the mystery of where the Harbingers come from, the mystery of what Toyo Hadara, I think Toyo Hadara is, what is his end game? Very much like Niles Cordeler from Doom Patrol, or Henry Bendix from Stormwatch. You know, the guy who collects all the superheroes is actually the bad guy. In fact, it's hard for me to actually even watch Unbreakable without constantly thinking about Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, because I really do feel like, you know, I think Wachowski's probably owe Morrison a check, but also M. Night Shyamalan, because Unbreakable is very close to that whole arc, you know. Again, I can't seem to find Torque's catchphrase here, but it was, I remember being annoyed every time he said it. It was just like, oh, why is he saying that? Well, yeah, we can't go back. Anyway, this is great. Again, I didn't make much of the love triangle between, or not even a love triangle, I don't know what that is, love rectangle between kind of Pete crushing on Chris, maybe Chris crushing on Torque, Flamingo crushing on Torque, and maybe some connection between Pete and Flamingo. Teenagers, what can you do? Hormones, puberty, racing. This is great. Again, this is a bit of a stretch. Like, I guess the Harbingers, they might be bad guys. I don't know. I mean, not so, what the Harbingers are in the real world. You know, is the Harbinger Foundation, what do they do? Are they superheroes? I mean, that stuff, like, again, Harbinger comic people can keep me honest in the comments down below. I'm not sure if I'm being an idiot, and if you can glean that from these issues about where they are, even if they are supposed to code as the X-Men, what are they and where they are. Again, I thought this was the dopest. This is really great. So you have this invisible guy here who he can turn invisible, but he's got to hold his breath. So the horror of all horrors, Flamingo heats up the air molecules around him. So ultimately, in order for him, he'll hold his breath, and then he's got to take a breath, and then when he does, so it's like a double feed line there. This is horrific. This is absolutely horrific, with the dialogue explaining what's going on, that the guy is invisible, and let me read it. You know, people think I'm dumb, but I declare, oh yes, it's the Southern, isn't it? So I'm not going to do a Southern accent, but I declare, the last dozen or so people who beat me up, they didn't get near as winded as you. I suspect you can't breathe when you're ghostly. So what if I just heat up all the air all around, so you don't dare get solid and draw a breath? And then, you know, it's like, and then we have this, right? I think it's not on the page turn, so you see it before you see it, unfortunately. So it would have been better if, rather than have it on the page turn, if that was panel 1, right? Like, so that's the first thing you see. I'm not going to tell your grandmother had to suck eggs, and it's a bit like, how dare I criticize Shooter here? But the reading experience is, you see it before you see it. So it would have been better if that's the first thing you see, because you register the page. So even before you've read all this dialogue here, you see him get shanked. So that should be panel 1 to really have impact. So it still has impact, but you see it before you see it, if that makes sense. Thus, not being as effective as it really could be. And this is great, like really, really great, a great death sequence here. And I love this where you just, you drop out the backdrop and it's just white. As you've seen this done a lot. I've seen this in Mike Allred's Madman, Gerard's Ways, is it Apocalypse Suite? No, Dallas, I think in Dallas, where he has claws. Ironically, in both Preacher, God ends up being Clint Eastwood. In Madman, I think God is Clint Eastwood. And I think in Umbrella Academy, God is a cowboy, or Clint Eastwood, if you will. So I thought that's a really interesting thing. Although I think in I think in Umbrella Academy, it's not God. It's like some fourth dimensional higher reality being, like some Grant Morrison thing. I could be wrong. But I love this moment here. The idea that, like I said, some of the dialogue, I should have gone back and visited this, but Torque's dialogue is very much like Pinhead and, and again, this is like, if you think about kids and you think about like kids from the 90s and you think about the movie Kids, and the dialogue here is very wholesome. It's very chaste, there's no swears, right? The kids, it's like very much the Josephine Creek kids. There's no swearing. There's no anything. And it's really weird when you think of how dominant rap music will be culturally. This is even before then. So it's very, so he calls Pete a lot of the time Pinhead, but here he uses his name. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment from Jim Shooter and very effective. And I probably should, I'll put spoiler alert in the heading there because that's a great, 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 great moment. And so that is we have these X-Men here. There's some more stuff about Harbingers that I really, really like. And he's really kind of going, oh, okay, these guys might not just be bad guys. They might be doing the necessary evil, the greater good. We have to take these teenagers out because they're too dangerous to live. And we don't know how Toyo Harada is manipulating these kids. And then we have this great moment with dealing with grief, I really, really like this. I really like this quietness of this issue, like it's kind of, let's give our comrade a proper send-off. And it's busy. It's very, very busy. And like I said, the pace at which Shooter doesn't mess around, he's like boom, 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 boom. Again, I don't know why Torque died. I think it's great. It really levels the book up. It really creates bigger stakes for the book. And an interesting punch out. Now, I don't know how influential Harbinger is. Is it the cliche that built the cliche and everything after it makes you go, and you have to view it in historical context of what is like Harbinger before Harbinger. And then we have this great sort of punch out moment. But that for me seems like the first arc, right? That fits like if we're talking about a book, a 3-act structure to a book, that's the first act out of the way. I don't know if that's enough to go, oh yeah, this should be considered in the same breath as Mouse and, Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, because it's not a complete story. That's the real problem. But I don't know. Maybe the next collection is interesting, right? Is very, very interesting. Maybe the next 7 issues, maybe that's what happens. The next 7 issues. And so we have these apart for the hardcover, you get these new stories, which I'm not really going to get into. A lot of this feels like after the fact, but I could be wrong. Who is the artist for these? I don't think this is Dave Lapland, is it? Maybe the colorist is different. Oh, that's why I should. So this was recolorized as well. So it's digital color. It was recolorized, and that's what really, really makes this book, quite special as well. And the paper is a little bit higher quality. So this is a great collection to have, I think. I'm not sure how worth it is revisiting, because like I said, I don't know how the story ends. But yeah, I wish there was more faith. Anyway, that brings us to Dun, 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 dun. So I don't have the front cover for this. And this is really interesting. It never occurred to me to read. So what I'll do is I'll just glance through this and then I'll read it and then I'll give you my thoughts afterwards. So here we have, this is very important. It never occurred to me to read this bottom bit, you know, even as a teenager, it never occurred to me. So as you see here, you know, 1994, so that's 2 years later, and this is Harbinger's, we're still on volume 1, 2 years later. 2 years later, we're still on volume 1. And yeah, issue number 26, February 1994. Wow, 2 years later. So 2 years later, we're still on volume 1, and we're on issue 26. So Maurice Fortneau, Sean Chen, Andrew Wendell as Inca, colorist Maria and Eric Beccari, Maria Beccari and Eric Lusk, and of course Bob Layton as editor-in-chief. And wow, dude, that is wow. So that is crazy. Maurice Fontenot. Maurice Fontenot is, I've not heard of that person, or Sean Yan, but, you know, maybe they've moved on to other careers, you know, as Spawn and Violator. So, I mean, wow, dude, I have no memory of this. This is the comic that survives. It makes sense that it was 94, to be honest with you. That makes sense. So that's a year before the speculative bubble pops, isn't it? It's a year before the speculative bubble bursts. So I'm just going through this. I like the colors here. It's almost very Dave Gibbons-esque, lots of yellow, like Watchmen-esque palette, you know, lots of sickly yellows, pinks, and I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I really like this comic. I really like this comic. And I'll be able to talk about why I like this comic, because right now I'm just glancing through. So, oh, look, here we have Dr. Solar, Valiant Visioned, Valiant Visioned, once again, presented by Valiant Vision, Valiant beginning in Solar, issue 33. So, and there we go, Jimmy Palamotti. Yeah, someone that's still active, right? I mean, Jimmy Palamotti is a made guy. Wow. So, quick read, very much a quick read. I'm going to go ahead and pause that, read it, and then I'll let you know my thoughts. Okay. So as you'll notice, we've sort of traveled, I think probably 19 issues into the future. And it's interesting because, you know, in 92, I guess speculative market being what it is, I don't know. I mean, 94 is like a year away from the collapse of the bubble. I guess everybody tried to sell their kind of single issue variant cover, you know, foil, you know, certification, variant edition, you know, comic books. And, you know, I guess the stores weren't, you know, no, go away. You know, we can't offer you, you know, dollars on the nickels on the dime, dollars and cents on the dollar, whatever. And what's fascinating and interesting is that is even now, is there a guy somewhere who's like, oh yeah, you know, I locked all my comic books that I bought in the 90s, the speculative market, just locked them away in a vault. And, you know, like he figured, oh yeah, you know, this, you know, you'd bag and board them and go, and this is going to be my pension. This is my retirement fund. And then, you know, all those, are those 90s comic books from the speculative bubble, are they all worthless? Or now, as the date of this recording, You know, is there some guy who's got some, you know, oh, this is the 1990 killer lot? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, as you can see there, what you're struck with is the first full page splash. Now, it's very telling. In 92, when Jim Shooter was writing Harbinger, there is no, for the first 7 issues, hang on, you guys, hang on. That might be nonsense. I think I think there's a full page splash at the end here, isn't there? Let's go. Yep. So it's very telling that the last issue in Harbingers, the last actual issue is a full page spread. So there you go. But I think that's the only one. Oh no! Wow, how did I miss all these full page spread? You know, with credits and whatnot. So yeah, not out of the realm of possibility. Page spread. I think that's slightly wasted here, but like I said, it's showy, it's confident. But I think if you're going to do a full page spread, I mean, I don't know what that is. Is it it's established shot of the interior where we are, but I don't know why this is a full page spread. I'm not sure this needs to be a full page spread. I think I can't fathom why it's a full page spread. Like it's not, I guess it's an establishing shot of location, but that is a waste of comic book real estate there. You know, you could have taken all this exposition. So at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you could have distilled all of this and well, not this, but distilled all of this, put it on page 1, and then boom, money shot, page 2, which is maybe a little too cliche. This is great. I talked a little bit about, to play catch up a little bit. So they say that news reporters in comic books or news shows are a great way to exposition dump, right? You want to get some information across to the readers, have a news report, and a news reporter giving exposition. So this is a recap, you know, a previously on Harbingers. So in the 19 issues that we've been away, I do believe that, you know, Peter is faced off with Toyo Harada. And remember the double page explosion that we had at the I think the midway point of issue 1, which was, oh, there we go, boom. This thing, right, where it's like, I would say that somehow in some face-off there was an explosion, as we noticed. So the main headquarters of the Harbingers has been destroyed in an explosion, probably caused by Pete and Toyo going at some sort of mind meld, Vulcan mind meld nonsense. And then we meet the new bad guy, who is, oh no, what is his name? His name is Takashi Kuramoto. Butchered that. Definitely, I apologize if I got that wrong, most definitely. But what's great is the wider concept of who the Harbinger are. And so we get this great little exposition here. Great little exposition. You know, I like the TV panels here. It's almost Frank Miller-esque, but not really. I mean, I have to say, the Sean guy actually kind of, I don't know, reminds me of like, it echoes Dave Lapham, but it's like Gibbons as well. I don't know, am I wrong? I'm probably wrong. But it just really tells you about the Harbingers Foundation, what they're doing, like a dark X-Men in a weird way, but not really. And I like it. It clears up a lot of stuff that I was quite slightly confused about. But like I said, Harbinger fans can keep me honest. And then boom, boom, here we have Faith watching television. All lies. Slightly confusing there. Credit box, Maurice Fontenot and Sean Yen. I guess I wanted the surprise of being this surprise. I could have Googled and did a whole bunch of research on this comic specifically. Not this issue or this comic, but the actual Harbinger series and its place in comic book history and critical acclaim. But I actually wanted to maybe come to it a little bit fresh. I don't know. Maybe I'll put a tail end bit of the research just to put things into context there. And again, there's a real, like, I mean, that's 3 panels there, which is really good. This is a very easy read, like a very easy read. You can see, I mean, it's 2 years later after Shoot Up, but again, you can see now how there's this real distillation, right? Like real distillation. Reason this probably resonated with me as a kid is the outsider, new kid kind of thing, right? Where here we have this guy going, Butch going, say, who's the fat chick? So originally, I think this really resonates, man. Like, there's no body positivity stuff in there, but maybe later on there would be, I don't know. But we don't really need it because we get a sense of faith. I would say not much in the popular culture, but this is kind of years later, right? So maybe she's grown, she's aged out of Battlestar Galactica. I mean, 94, and I guess this is like the college years, right? Like, if I don't know if Harbinger's aged in real time, but I mean, 2 years later, yeah, she's out of high school, so she's like, this is like Harbinger, the college years. And so she has a roommate. So I don't know. Maybe you could run this through Joseph Campbell's Monomythic Hero's Journey or Dan Harmon's Story Circle, right? I guess we've established, I guess we've established, I mean, we've established a character in homeostasis. We've established a character, in the status quo of things. And her need is the lies perpetrated by the Harbinger Foundation to expose that. She now is in the Harbinger, institution, the living quarters for the students. Here she is meeting her comrades, her allegiances, if you will. But what's great is if this was season 2, it's still volume 1. So, arguably, this feels like season 2, right? So if this was season 2 of Harbingers, it's really interesting to now flip it. So now, I mean, I skipped over the Egg Breakers in the 7 issues previously, but they're like I guess they're the hardcore division. And, we see there with the uniforms and the coats and stuff. And so now she's past the point of no return, and she's in an environment now where she has to adapt to the things they're going to be throwing at her as she makes allegiances and enemies, establishing now the hierarchy. It's really interesting, I think. Like I said, as a dark X-Men, it's still got that thing going on, right? And then we go. Here's a reference to Pete and probably another recap. I'm not sure I'm convinced of the amnesia as a plot point to kind of, I don't know. Do the readers know what's happened? I have no idea. But it's nice that there's a reference there to Pete. Very interesting. And then this is really good as well. Now we realize that the flip side of it, right? That I'm not sure if this was worked out, but like Harbingers that they killed on the road and in intervening battles, their friends now hold a grudge to Faith. I really like the Letterman Harbinger jackets. Valiant really missed a trick by not making those a thing. I don't know if they are a thing. They probably are. If they're not, they should be, right? You would think that it's such a great kind of logo that you would think they would put it on t-shirts, on jackets, on everything, especially in the speculative market. But, I don't know. Anyway, I can see why this resonated, as a bullied kid in school. It makes sense, and a chunky kid as well. Totally makes sense why this would resonate with me. And there's not really much superheroic about it. This single issue pretty much cemented my love for comic books, I think, Even before reading all the classics, there was this at the, I'm dating myself here, but at the age of 8 and 9, this was the bug. This is getting bitten by the bug. And it's not what you think it is. It's a very sensitive story about a fat chick who's picked on in school and then wants to run away and finds that, she finds her tribe. She finds where she fits. She found her friendship group. So that's pretty cool. And again, the mystery, where if anything, she gets what she wants, right? She has a sort of ego death in a weird way where she is probably you know, she decides that she's going to leave, she's going to run away. And then in being confronted by the big bads, she kind of, right, listen here, please just leave me alone. I was trying to go. Isn't that what you wanted? So in a weird way, you know, Faith realizes she doesn't want to fight. It's easier for her to run away. But if she continually runs away, she's always going to be alone and won't really fit in. I think her maturing is great, but it doesn't have the optimistic upbeatness of when Jim Shooter writes her. But then Jim Shooter is writing her as a teenager, and this feels like she's matured a little bit more, but maybe not for the great. I think she's lost a little bit of her spark, you know. But then considering what she went through and the amnesia and everything being a blur, maybe that's supposed to be expected. But I think there we go, you know. That by having her friends or people that somewhat like her, you know, coming to rescue her, it gives her the strength to realize that that she's gonna, you know, she's gonna stick it out, and she's gonna, for her own reason, she's gonna follow through with her mission. Her resolve has been strengthened because they have confidence, and that's it. That's 1994. I draw attention to this. You know, Joe Quesada as penciler here, and Jimmy Palmiotti as inker. I don't know Mark Moretti. Moretti, yeah. You know. So when the speculative bubble pops in 95, and then years later, Quesada kind of becomes editor-in-chief, thus bringing about the resurgence of that great boom period under Marvel, where you have guys like Mark Millar and Brian Michael Bendis, and I mean, the Fortune's business picks up, you know, they get out of red, and then the movie business, and then that takes us where we are now. You know, his Marvel Knights label was some of the best stuff at that time. Interesting. So yeah, that was it. That was Harbinger's issue. I like it. I think it holds up. You know, it's a very good read. Maurice Fontenot and Sean Chen. I think I will Google those guys and see what else they've done, or what, you know. It was strong. It was very, very strong. But like I said, my pools of knowledge, my gaps of knowledge are completely blank. I don't think I will research Well, yeah, I will, because I'm now curious. I will research Harbingers, and I might do a part 2 video with my research. Like I said, it's interesting. It's very interesting, you know. I didn't know this book was even critically acclaimed, but maybe it fell off, maybe it imploded. It's really weird because it feels like Jim Shooter's darling and his baby. I don't know if it was, but you know, it's very rare. Maybe this is before the kind of long form creator owned kind of, do you know what I mean? Where, you know, I guess that were prevalent throughout the 90s, the kind of the Transmets, the Preachers, the Invisibles, the Swamp Things, where someone will get on a book and they just write it for years and years and years. These long form, some of those are work for hire clearly, but the Vertigo creator owned books, right? Where people would just be writing them for 5 years and then boom, it would end, right? And they would write the whole of it. I guess Losers comes to mind. 100 Bullets, Why the Last Man, but I don't really think of that as first wave Vertigo. I could be wrong. I kind of think early Vertigo, you know, the kind of Preacher, Invisibles kind of thing. That's off the top of my head. I can't think of any more. But yeah, I mean, this is really weird that I don't know when Jim Shooter went off the book, but you know, it's far too early for him to be replaced by someone else. But I don't know, maybe there was some entanglement in the story there and I'm just being an idiot. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you for listening if you have. And yeah, I'll see you next time.
Aubrey wasn't at death's door, it was halfway down death's passage hanging up its coat.